What's up, my brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Fireground Fitness Podcast, where we talk about all things pertaining to life on and off the fireground. The views and the opinions expressed are those of your host and our guest. In 2023, this is our first episode. We took a brief reprieve as we wrapped up the year. Our guest is Fire Chief Josh Stefancic. Now, we talk about mentoring, we talk about management, we talk about education, we talk about the importance of relationships. Fantastic conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Check it out. Chief Josh Stefancic, thank you for sitting down and talking to me and being a guest on the Fireground Fitness Podcast. I want to talk about your career trajectory. I want to talk about what you do in your organization, and as the vice chair in IFSTA, what that's about, and why people should participate in IFSTA,
right?
Or in why firefighters should participate in any extracurriculars, and because I think there's lots of value in participating in organizations outside your primary day-to-day job duties. And then, of course, I want to talk about whatever kind of comes to mind for you that you think is important and valuable to share with our audience. So I don't know if I told you this, but the hook of this show is we talk about all things pertaining to life on and off the fireground.
Awesome.
So anything pertaining to what we do, the business of emergency services, etc. So all that, let's start with, tell me a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, which I know you've been doing great work. And I guess, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh,
thanks for having me. And
absolutely.
And first off, you passed the first test. You said my last name perfectly. I have heard it so many different ways. But I always respond, and you got it. So I appreciate it.
You need to know that I spent the night practicing.
Okay. So. All right. Well, job well done. So, thanks for having me here. Started full-time in the fire service in 2001, but the story sort of begins a little bit before there. I was thinking about this before we, when you said you were interested in talking and just thinking about some things, and it really starts off with, at home and with my family being raised in the Chicago suburbs, and my father a physician, but my uncle on my mother's side a Chicago firefighter who started around in the late 1960s during the Martin Luther King riots, and grew up in the city. And I just always been excited about the profession of being a firefighter. I think like all of us, you, me, a lot of your listeners, just never grew out of it, and just always had that knack for the fire department. I was a buff, during high school I was a buff. I could tell you everything about our local fire department, about the Chicago Fire Department. So
when you say grow up in the suburbs of Chicago, tell me a little bit like what's that look like, and where's it at? What
sure.
town?
So southwest suburbs, Orland Park, Illinois, which is about 30 minutes from downtown. My parents grew up in the city, and they raised us in the suburbs. So, not a good middle class community, good friends, safe community, and good fire department, expanding community suburbs from the city. And during high school, I had the opportunity at 16 years old. So not just to be this fan of it, but I heard about an Explorer program.
Oh, okay.
And it was the Frankfurt Fire District, which was adjacent community. And walked in there, 16, 17 years old, and here was this outlet I found every week, like-minded people to come together at a firehouse. And, you look back at it now, like several mentors, right? Several here in IFSTA who I've worked with, but my very first career mentor, Pat Collier, still remember him.
That's awesome.
If you're picturing what Pat Collier looks like, this Irish fireman, that's exactly what this Irish Pat Collier looks like. And you think of it, when you go every Tuesday night for 3 hours, you were, this is cool, but it was cool. And I look back at it, and I think of the time that Pat Collier didn't have any kids there. Pat Collier was a firefighter giving his time back to these high school kids, and we're spending time in the firehouse just learning about the job. So that was really my first taste and this affirmation that I want to stay in the fire service.
Yeah. How many kids were in that program?
So there were probably about 15 to 20 of us.
Oh, pretty big program.
Yeah, it was good. And we were all from, there weren't a lot of Explorer programs then for some reason. It was just this, it wasn't this common thing in that area. And so did 2 years with that. And I knew I'd want to be a firefighter. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And
how'd your parents feel about that?
They were, so I come from a supportive family. I don't know what it's like to grow up in a household that doesn't have parental support. Like, it's like I've been very blessed and privileged with that. And it was, I could be whatever I want, but, you know, it was really drilled into us. You're going to college. You're going to school just because of the options that will be afforded to you.
Right.
So, you know, there was definitely the swaying of, are you sure you want to do that? You know, we know there's some safety issues, and then,
but, well, having a dad that's a physician, like, clearly academia is part of the program.
Absolutely.
And is probably a non-negotiable, I'm guessing, for him, right? Like, it's not a thing. And, so that puts a certain amount of pressure, because there is this idea that being a firefighter is very blue collar,
right?
And, you know, not necessarily above the fray when it comes to, you know, his profession, what he's doing.
Right. So just this difference. And, but I was always into it. But at the same time in high school, it's just a funny sidebar story. I did speech team. I did, you know, the plays and stuff. And I enjoyed speaking in front of people. I just, I thrived on it. I had fun doing it. So as I'm looking to figure out how I could become a firefighter, my dad is sending me stuff from, you know, Broadway theater trained in New York City. And, you know, I will pay for you to be a poor actor, you know, in New York, whatever you want to do. So, but they've always supported me. And I started looking at schools. And once again, next mentor pops up, and it's the chief of the local fire department of the town I'm living in Orland Park, Illinois. And Bob Hughes, I still remember him. And I asked him, I told my story, what I wanted to do. And he goes, well, I have 2 employees. One went to Oklahoma State University and one went to Eastern Kentucky University. So I said, well, where should I go? And he goes, if I were you, you should really look at Oklahoma State. I had never heard of Oklahoma State University. Why would I, right?
Right.
And so I take both schools into consideration and, you know, plan the family trips to go look at both. Eastern Kentucky. So this is 1996. Eastern Kentucky, Oklahoma State, and Stillwater. So the night before we're supposed to go to Eastern Kentucky University, my dad has a kidney stone. So we cancel the trip. Never make it to Eastern Kentucky, but we make it to Oklahoma State. And I was done. I'm like, this is it. This is where I want to go.
What was the big attraction for you?
Probably
I think I know, but I want to hear you say
So
it.
probably this flyer I got, and it said like West Point of the Fire Service. I'm like, West Point of the Fire Service. Okay, this is cool. Let me keep digging. And then you know, we had an essentials manual as explorers. We all had our own dedicated essentials manuals. Okay. And I start flipping through there, and I start making this connection. Oklahoma State. IFSTA,
right?
And I'm like, man, this must be legit, and just love the campus. The program was for me, like-minded people again, and of fire protection students. And I knew Oklahoma State offered a fire protection program, so there were just different areas you could go into. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna pursue the path of Oklahoma State. So that was it.
Okay, I need you to educate me a little bit,
Sure.
Because when I think about fire protection programs and OSU, to me that's fire engineering, right? So what is the offering? So a kid who's coming down the pipeline today wants to go to OSU. What is his available?
So there's really like these 3 tracks, and fire protection, industrial hygiene, and safety. So when I went to school and graduated, people went into, it wasn't everybody became a firefighter. And we didn't learn how to become a firefighter. But we learned about fire. We learned about fire behavior. We learned about creating better, safe workplaces. We learned about industrial hygiene. So we got into hazmat. And so we have people who graduate our program, Oklahoma State University School of Fire Protection. They go into the oil industry. They go into any type of industry. So if you pass like Jim Beam, the Jack Daniels plants, you know, they all have safety engineers.
Right.
I have friends who I graduated with they are safety engineers at meatpacking plants, and every hospitals need safety engineers. And then the fire protection field, so doing private design for sprinklers, and you know that Oklahoma State has. I think it was this realization when, just to speed up a little bit, and I'll go back, I went up to Emmitsburg, Maryland in November at the United States Fire Administrator she had her summit. And I went as an IFSA representative. And I remember flying up there. And it was just this moment of, I could not and would not have been here without Oklahoma State University.
Mm-hmm.
And just this theme of my career, my friends, my success based off Oklahoma State University and those mentors and my family that allowed me to do that. I just, I can't, I don't know how any other way to share how grateful I am to it. But so just so many options from Oklahoma State. So I came out and graduated this program in 2001 of not necessarily, I wasn't certified to be a firefighter, but I had these foundational principles of everything that led to it that has still to this day benefited me in my operational and administrative career.
Yeah. Well, and what I really appreciate what you said there is recognizing the path that you took and the gratitude that you have for the people who kind of opened doors and nudged you and offered their opinions, which shaped and informed your perspective. And that's so important, I think, just in general terms.
Right.
And you do owe a debt of gratitude to your dad's kidney stone because
Absolutely.
you might have got distracted with Kentucky.
Hey, I will have to say too, my dad, he was definitely my instructor on becoming a man, my very first management instructor.
Really?
I'm a big fan of management, and my dad used to take me to the hospital on Sundays to do rounds with him. But I didn't realize till I got older that, hey, I was the youngest of 4 boys. There was also some benefit to my mother and everything of watching 4 boys, but to see how my dad interacted and doing rounds, to see how he treated patients, to see how he treated nurses, to see how he treated fellow doctors, you could not tell the difference when my dad talked to you as a Dr. Stefancic, whether was that a doctor, was that a nurse, was that a patient? It was this genuine, authentic, real conversation. And, I was just thinking about that, all these mentors I've had, and who was that first manager? And it was my dad, just the way, like he had staff at his office, just the way he treated them. And his big thing was get the job done, just be there when I need you. Family comes first. Let me remove those obstructions to get to where you need to go. So, but the mentor-mentee thing, I think, is such a big, important thing. I've had them. I have them today. I will have new ones in the future. But then at some point, we need to make this, at some point, we who have been mentored become the mentors. Mm-hmm. And that started, I have that opportunity, and, it starts happening probably sooner than you think, or maybe sometimes without you even knowing that you're mentoring people.
Right. Well, I think those initial first times are not necessarily deliberate efforts to be a mentor.
Right.
Right. They're just somebody seeks you out and you say, well, yeah, I'm happy to help you. And you find yourself in a mentor position.
Sure. And it's fun and exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see. So I was taken off and I apologize for jumping around, but I was taken off for this conference, right? We're here in Tulsa at the Winter IFSA conference, and I was taken off from Tampa. And I was telling this to my district chief last night, who I just touched in with. I didn't have to touch in. We don't have to touch in, but just I enjoy touching in. And we're talking about the day, and I told him, I said, man, I can't thank you enough that. And I was thinking about this, and I was taken off from Tampa, looking over Tampa Bay, over the wing, and how calm I am, and how I will peacefully sleep knowing that the organization is in good hands. And I think that's good for him to hear. It's good for all of them to hear, but it's also so important for me to realize too,
to acknowledge it.
Yeah, the City Safety Harbor is in good hands, and now it took us time to get there. And we're always going to focus on continuous improvement, but it's such a cool, peaceful thing to know. But it takes work from us, right? We can't just sit there and expect it to happen. We as managers have to nurture that and intentionally do it. It's a 24/7 deal. Right.
Well, I want to dig in on that a little bit, but I want to circle back. So before you ended up as the fire chief,
right?
Some things had to happen.
Let me speed it up a little bit.
So take me back to when you became a firefighter.
Absolutely. So 2001, embarking on graduating, and I'm going back to the Chicago suburbs. That's home. That's where I grew up. Now, in Illinois, you had to be 21 to start testing to be a full-time firefighter. That's just the way it was. You had to be 21. You couldn't be older than 35. And, like I said, I started researching this in high school. So I knew, hey, I could be 20 and a half and I could start testing. And now, it's funny. It wasn't the social media. We didn't have social media there.
No, you had to make phone calls.
Oh, yeah, 2000, 2001. So I had a subscription service I got it by mail once a month of who was testing. So I started flying back to Illinois and doing some civil service tests. So I remember going back and I did a test. It was a consortium. It was about 6 or 7 different departments in the north suburbs of Chicago. 2 sessions of 500 people testing. So Stefancic, I'm in the second session. I fly up on a Friday. The test is in the afternoon. This is my first civil service exam. Now I did all the prep books. I met with my another uncle who was a high school math teacher because I had to relearn multiplying fractions and it's just stuff we forget about.
Right.
But I remember going there and doing that written test, and I was the last one out. I double-checked every answer. I looked over it all, and I remember the proctor was a lieutenant from a department. And I said, man, I'm sorry. He goes, no, man, this is your job. This is your lottery ticket. So do what you need to do. So I was in the top 20 out of 1,000. But once again, different time is some of the struggles we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
50 people out of that 1,000 people got hired. And my very first senior guy, Jim Bent, day one told me, how's it feel? I said, how's what feel? This is Wilmette, Illinois. Wilmette, Illinois hires me. Great department, first department. He goes, how's it feel to win the lottery? And nobody ever told me that. And I'm like, man, you're right. I got it made. I'm a firefighter. I am a fire. The dream realized, 24, 48 hour shift. I still remember riding backwards and laughing and giggling in the back that it's happened. Like this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
And great community, served with Wilmette for about 5 or 6 years. And on my days off, I worked as a fire inspector for the neighboring organization, which was only done because of Oklahoma State University.
Right.
And I remember getting hired in Wilmette, the deputy chief. I'm going to tie it back to Oklahoma State. He goes, hey, man, big fan of Oklahoma State. I know what they're doing down there. So, we're really happy to have you here, And now I was the rookie, and I did rookie things. I was mentored. I messed up. There were those things they had to keep me in the box. I went through those spells of I'm good. I got it. I don't need anybody.
Yeah. Well, and on top of all that, you're still just 20 years old. You're
just 20 years old.
You said 20-year-old.
Yeah,
still a kid.
And what also helped me really succeed is I'm the youngest of 4 boys. So 3 older brothers. I'd been getting training on firehouse survival for 20-some years, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So working in Wilmette and then working as a part-time fire inspector on my days off. And then also I was working at Comiskey Park where the White Sox played as off-duty. I was off-duty, but I was a paramedic.
EMT or whatever, off-duty medic. Yeah.
I thought I was going to go watch baseball games. I did not know the work I would be doing, like of these things that were happening, like people getting hit by balls, by bats, fights in the parking lot. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit different. So Good experience.
Yeah.
And then, always just been a fan of education. Still am a fan of education and re-enrolled in grad school. I wanted to get a Master of Public Administration, but I ended up graduating 7 years later. I did a part-time program through Oklahoma State. I did their FEMP program, so Fire and Emergency Management Program. I got a Master of Science in Fire and Emergency Administration. And I just knew at that point, I was getting to this point of, I love being a firefighter. And it is the absolute best job in the world. But I want to do a little bit more. I wanted more responsibility. Mm-hmm. And another mentor, Brad Clark, deputy chief in Palm Coast, past IFSA chair. At this time, I knew Brad, and Brad just sort of said, hey, to get where you want to go, you may, open up, look around. You may have to leave the Chicago area. You don't know. You could stay where you're at, but you don't know what else is out there. Like, it's a fire service. Enjoy the opportunities. So I just started applying for jobs I'm nowhere near qualified for, and I'm just putting stuff out there and getting rejection letters back. But I'm learning about the requirements, which is also helping my education and just to push myself. Learn about this thing called the Executive Fire Officer Program, staying in grad school, and anyways, I get a call back from this community, Tarpon Springs, Florida, that I applied to be their administrative lieutenant. Now, this is funny, probably not funny.
And you're a backseat firefighter at this time.
Backseat firefighter. So about 5 or 6 years. And I forgot I applied for Tarpon. I had to go look up my notes, Tarpon. I did apply for Tarpon Springs. And they're we want you to come down and interview. We're going to do a test. And I'm hemming and hawing. I'm like, am I going to go down there just to tell them no? And I tell my brother, and he's like, why do you think they're going to tell you no? I said, well, why would they hire from the outside? It's just not. It wasn't this common thing then. So
right. Yeah, and I think that, and I could be wrong about this, but my experience has proven that the fire service is very hierarchical. Right.
Right.
You come in at the bottom. You get a golden parachute. You never leave. You just go up the organization as high as you're going to go, and then you jump out when you retire. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it works. Right. There's but I just didn't feel settled. Yeah. Okay. And once again, nothing bad with any of these places.
No, and I just think it's the reason I bring that up is because it feels like it's an uncommon narrative. That just might be my experience, but clearly, as I'm having conversations with different folks, that I'm seeing that the mobility is more present for folks than we realize.
Yes, absolutely, and I think it's getting more and more common than when we first entered too. So, anyways, it's winter in Chicago. It's February. There's a snowstorm. I'm getting on a plane, land in Tampa. Never been there before. I'm like, man, this is beautiful. Do the interview and meet the chief. The chief is this new gentleman, Stephen Marino from Georgia. And so I'm there, and I see an internal candidate walk in. I'm like, wait a minute, this is our game's over, So now I have nothing to lose. And that was probably the green light, right? And now I'm just gonna be me. Yeah. And it was just that authenticity. I did the interview. I went through this thinking I'm not going to tell them what I think they want to hear. I'm just going to tell them who I am. But I think the key moment of the story was we were all put in this room next to the chief's office, and he didn't say anything. He just sat in his office as we're all waiting in this room to be called for our interview with his staff. Well, I'm not wasting time. I get up and I go knock on his door, and he looks up at me. He's like, "Sir?" I go, "Sir?" He goes, "May I help you?" I go, "Yeah, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Josh Stefancic from, Chicago." He goes, "I know who you are." And he had a bunch of Alabama football stuff in his room. And, man, we talked about Alabama football. We talked about everything not fire. And
then you went in for your interview with somebody else.
Then I went in for my interview with somebody else. Well, sure as heck, a couple weeks later, Chief Marino calls me, and we want to bring you down. And so Chief Marino, who's since retired, they bring me down. I'm not Florida certified. I'm not Florida licensed. He gives me a car, gives me a pager, gives me a radio, tells me to get Florida certified, tells me to get my Florida medic, says learn the system, learn the department. Whatever I ask you to do is priority, but help make the department better. And so I pack up, leave. I never thought I'd leave Chicago suburbs. I mean, this was like everybody's just like, wait, you're doing what? I'm like, don't worry, I'll be back in 5 years. So this is 2001, right? This is 2006, 2007. I'll be back in 5 years. And Tarpon was great, man. Jack of all trades, master of nothing, administrative lieutenant position, 40 hours. Just this go-to person for the shift commanders, the fire chief, working on grants, working on training, and just thriving, running fires, helping the shift commander on scene. And great opportunity. Yeah. And it was at this point where I started to learn that people leave, things come up and people retire, and that chief who brought me down retired. And so at that point, other opportunity, just this desire to do more, and ended up working for the city of Largo for the next 8 years as I came in as a chief officer. I had worked as an assistant fire marshal for him, assistant emergency management chief, training chief, and then assigned back to shift 2448 as a shift commander. So in that area, they called them district chiefs. And I will say, looking back, that's when I really learned how to become a firefighter. and probably
What makes you say that?
Honestly, just the raw answer to your question is the work, the community we worked for, the incidents that we were getting. We were busy. I guess the answer to the question. We had fire.
Yeah.
And we had residents that had challenges.
Yeah.
And it was a different view for me. It was a different view than what I grew up with. And we had about 150 personnel, each shift about 50 people. And here I am, 30-some years old in my own buggy, and there was one day I went back to back working fires.
Yeah.
And I'm still that guy riding backwards at 20 years old, giggling.
Right.
On my way to that incident. And I was morphing into this zone of I am mastering my craft on becoming a firefighter.
Yeah. There's something about taking the skills that you have, that you've developed, and then having to step back and sit in the buggy, as you call it, right? Yeah. And watch the firefighters that you are responsible for out doing the job. And it's dangerous.
It is.
And you can't
Nerve-wracking.
actually affect the danger, right? Other than you can get on the radio and say something, but that it's limited impact, right?
You want to learn that, hey, where the buck stops, that buck stops with you. Mm-hmm. And once again, great mentors. Brian Brady, a colleague, district chief, he was very senior to me, and he'd support me saying this. He was that rough district chief. He was that he held you accountable. He told you how he felt, and we used to laugh that he'd fix it and I'd write about it. We just had a good relationship. But Brian taught me how to be a district chief. Brian taught me about keeping the shift running smooth and having clear expectations for our personnel. No surprises. Brian taught me about following the union contract, about following the policy, because that's what the firefighters expected. And that's what helped keep the shift running smooth. And it helped us have consistent answers and decisions, and that there were no surprises. So Brian was a great mentor when it became to running a shift and then working scenes. And it was just such a good gig. And there was this moment where I had a lieutenant, Emmett Sands, he's their operations chief now, where he was a lieutenant at this station where I was at. And I was going home on vacation early, around 3 o'clock, odd time, but I had family in town. I had to burn vacation. And, a structure fire call came in. And I was running out to the car, and he rolled down the windows, and he said, "I got it, Chief. You're good." And I'm like, "No, I'm supposed to go on this call." And he just starts giggling, and he pulls out. So it was this first time where I just put the radio on, and I was wrapping up some emails. And I still remember it. Listening to them do this job. They don't need us, right? They just didn't need me. They're going to secure the scene, and to listen to them do these things that you have talked about, that you have worked on, that they're excited, and it's these things you've worked on them with. It was just I hope I'm explaining that right. It was just such an enjoyable moment. You're just proud of them. You're happy. You're like, man, it's happening. This is happening, and it's so cool. And I try to do that with our district chiefs where I work now in Safety Harbor. Hey, man, sometimes just step back and listen and watch what your crews do.
Let them work.
You will be and whether you're at the firehouse or you're on the scene, let them work, and you will be so blown away about the product they deliver.
So there's a Bruno quote that you just reminded me of.
Yeah.
Hire good people, train them, give them the tools, and get out of the way.
Heck yeah, man.
And
Absolutely.
I think about that. Now it's super simple, right, to say it, but it does take deliberate work.
Yes.
To get people to that point, right? You didn't get to a point where you could sit in your office, listen on the radio, and be like, oh, look at them go.
Yeah, man.
That took effort.
Oh yeah.
So what were some of the things that you did as a district chief to ensure the success of your folks?
Sure. So I think it was at the point where always been a podcast fan. So there's a podcast I listen to called Manager Tools, and it's not fire based, it's not government based, it's really private business based, but it's management, it's people stuff. I really became a fan of one-on-ones, and intentionally meeting with your people. And the one-on-one isn't my meeting with the individual that reports to me. It is their meeting. Hey, you have my undivided attention for a specific amount of time per week, and tell me what you're thinking. Give me the feedback. I'm going to give you feedback, and we are going to intentionally, and it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
And we're going to build this relationship because there's going to be at some point where I'm going to have to give you some feedback. It's going to be uncomfortable for me. It's going to be uncomfortable from you. But we have built up such a great relationship that we know that's more important. And it allows us to focus on the job, the work at hand. Because think about it. You go, I don't have these one-on-ones. I don't build this relationship. And here I'm going to go knock on somebody's door at their firehouse, and I'm going to do a withdrawal from a relationship that we haven't built. And I've been there on both ends, and it just takes so much time to recover.
Right.
And I think the big thing too is getting on the same page. Once again, I mentioned about expectations, clear expectations. That going back to that senior district chief who taught me, we will always do what's best for the community. I've had a couple mentors, and I have shared that through my organization. If we're on the same page that we're going to do the best for the organization or the community, not necessarily the individual, we'll consider the individual, but the biggest thing is the job. If we're all in agreement on that, that helps, and that has helped in that situation when I was at district chief. And I think being able to have those honest conversations, which are not easy, and also I think reading the room is important, right? Like knowing when you should be there, knowing when you shouldn't be there, and allowing those company officers to do their job and to exercise what you've taught them, or to exercise the policy. Learning about one-on-ones too, I think the biggest thing is how we correct change and behavior and discipline. I'll wrap it all up to one word, but I think a big thing for me is we correct things going forward. Okay, we can't change the past, and but hey, let's talk about it at our one-on-one. We're not going to knee-jerk react. Let's talk about this issue. Here's why. Tell me what you did, or here's why I think we should do different. Hey, going forward, let's do it this way. And that could be an immediate major thing. That could be something you could wait to talk about. But I think it's so important that if we start with, hey man, even out in the floor, apparatus bay floor walk around, hey, going forward, when you check that chainsaw again, let it sit off onto the side, let that engine get warmed up. I can't change the past.
Right.
And I'm not going to smack you. But hey, man, going forward, let's create the clear expectation and champion that.
You know what's interesting? I hear an element of ownership in that, because when you come in and you recognize that a member was doing something that was sideways, whatever it might have been.
Yeah, sure.
Who's responsible for that?
Oh, yeah.
So they have some culpability, clearly,
right.
But ultimately, like we said a minute ago, you're responsible for making sure they have the training they need. And frankly, no matter where you are in the organizational level, part of that responsibility is yours.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And especially if you're their direct supervisor, but on up the chain of command, there's things that you could have done to influence that person's training and education. So if somebody does something crazy, you're like, yeah, their behavior was out of alignment,
right.
But what were the expectations?
Absolutely.
Do they know what they are?
Well, so I had a boss in Largo, Chief Willis, Shelby Willis. She's out in Ogden, Utah now, but she was a big fan of that and champion of that. Did they know? She would always ask, did they know? I'm like, interesting question. Well, they should have known, Chief. She goes, I get it. They should have.
Should.
But did they? And
right.
Who should have realized it? And so I think that's important. It goes back to those expectations. When I came to Safety Harbor, so do Largo for 8 years and then get this opportunity in Safety Harbor. And that was something always important for me. And what I told them during the interview is that I think it's important when a firefighter arrives at firehouse, they know what's in store for the day. I'm a fan of routine. I'm a fan of a method. Methodology. There's a method to my madness, and but I think it's important where I know what's going to happen on Mondays on Monday afternoons, or besides a call, I know on Thursday mornings, it's a training day, and I think expectations come through the union contract. It's not the union's contract. It's not it's our contract. This is what we have agreed on and worked on. So this is the clear expectation.
Right.
These are the policies and procedures. If they're not working, let's change them. Let's change them together. And nothing's perfect. We're not perfect, but let's acknowledge that too from the get-go. and that we're going to have issues. But I think that expectation and clearing that up so we can go forward together is essential, and it's been successful for me as a district chief, and which actually helped me get to that opportunity to become a fire chief.
So how did you know you were ready to make that transition to that level?
So, once again, you get those little bugs and prompts, and it was nothing. I thought I could do it. I'm like, you know what? I think I could do this. I think I want this opportunity. And I think I'd like the challenge and the hunt and, working on school, and that, I'm the guy I could get this job. So I had started applying and probably started applying for jobs in 2013, 2014, once again, probably not meeting all the, job qualifications, probably definitely out of my league, definitely way nowhere near ready for it. And had some interviews. 2015 started getting some interviews, and one time a finalist. And I tell you what, that was work. It was work pursuing a fire chief's job, and stressful. You go into this vortex because you want to be that great candidate, and you want to learn everything you can about that organization, and you learn about rejection. You learn about how to handle rejection. Part of the process, right? Mm-hmm. As hard as it is, it's part of the process. And having these great mentors to explain that to me. But to be top 3 for a great community, I mean, you've moved there in your head, right? And then it's, okay, it's a no. And you got to tell your family. You got to tell people. And your tail's between your legs, and you're embarrassed. What did I do wrong? And it's nothing. It's just, what I've learned from people is sometimes it's just not the best fit. You got to wait till it's the best fit. Mm-hmm. So everything's going great in Largo, and I'm the fire marshal. I have this great office. I'm 30-some years old. I got this great courtyard in front of me, and everything's fine. And all of a sudden I get a call from a neighboring community, Safety Harbor. It says, the HR director, we'd love for you to apply for this job. I'm like, all right, sure. I'll think about it. And, I had applied, thought of it, same community, same county, part of our consortium of agencies there, and go through the application period, do some interviews. I'm a finalist, and I pull out of the process. I wasn't settled. Something wasn't right. And there was nothing wrong with Safety Harbor. There was nothing wrong with Largo. I wasn't excited to leave Largo. I was excited about Safety Harbor. I just wasn't excited to leave Largo because I was comfortable. Mm-hmm. I knew what was happening. And so I put it aside. I'm like, all right, Safety Harbor, this isn't done. I'll stay here for a couple more years.
There'll be a job in the future.
And so, of course, you know how it is with all the rumor mills. This thing spreads through our county super quick. Stefancic's out, and everybody's, maneuvering all these other, discussions. And about a week later, I'm sitting at a funeral for, we had a logistics guy that had passed away. I'm sitting in a funeral on a Friday afternoon, and my phone starts vibrating in my pocket. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is them. This is safe. This is the place said, hey, just not now. And sure as heck it was. So call them back, and they go, hey. I'm like, hey. And it's the HR director. She's like, yeah, city manager really wants to go out to lunch with you. I go, really? She goes, yeah.
We're not accepting your
rejection, right? Yeah. So I go, sure. I'll meet Matt. I'll meet Mr. Spoor for lunch. She goes, well, first off, it's Matt, not Mr. Spoor. I go, all right, I'll meet Matt for lunch. All about relationships, right? And best fit. So like, where are we gonna meet for lunch? And it's like, well, there's this barbecue place in Clearwater. Meet there. So of course, the whole weekend now, like my whole world's upside down. Like I moved this to the side. It wasn't gonna happen. And so come Tuesday, I'm meeting them for lunch. Nobody knows from Largo I'm going. So I take an extended afternoon off. I'm changing into a suit in a back stock room, and the two janitors from Largo are seeing me, and they're like, what are you doing? So I show up to this barbecue joint in my suit. The city manager walks in, and he just got off he just finished 18 at the golf course, and he sees me, and he's wearing sunglasses, and he's just laughing. He's like, come on, man, let's sit. And it was 5 minutes in. I'm like, man, this is a great relationship. We are hitting it off. And he asks me, he says, why'd you pull out of the process? And I told him, I wasn't excited about leaving Largo. I'm excited about Safety Harbor, but I want you to know, like, I want to do these things. And he's like, well, whatever these things are, I want you to do for us. And I got the gig. And so you go back to how do you know you're ready, right? So they call me, they offer me the job, and I'm in my office, and I sit back. I accept the job, and I sit back and I say to myself, well, shit, now what? Now what do you do, right?
It just got real.
It just got real.
Yeah.
It just got real. And, but just like when I got that paramedic license, just like when you got that driver operator cert, that company officer designation,
yeah.
First day as district chief, my first day as fire chief. It was like that first day, nervous. You want to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wait till you're ever ready. I just don't know if that's ever going to happen.
So when you look back on your life and you say like all these different first times, and we were nervous, even, what was it, 40 minutes ago, beginning of this podcast, like, I'm nervous about a podcast. Right? I'm like, it's your first time.
Oh, yeah.
And so the first time you do something, there's so much unknown, right? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be able to respond appropriately in this situation, right?
Do I have what it takes?
Yeah. I remember the first time rolling out as a battalion chief, I'm on a working fire and I see the illumination on the skyline as I'm coming around the corner in the dark, and I'm like, holy crap, this is for real.
It's real. It's
right?
happening.
I grab the mic and think to myself, okay, how's this going to go?
Right.
Take a deep breath.
Right.
Give your best radio voice. Right?
Oh yeah, that's it. Hey,
battalion aides on scene. And just.
I rode with a battalion chief in Largo. His thing was, I did the breath. He did a giggle. I rode with him. I turned to look at him. I go, what was that? He goes, I don't know, man. I just always do this little giggle to calm me down. And he'd been doing it for years. I'm like, we all do this? He goes, we all do it. Yeah. And one guy did a little whistle before he talked on it. But I think when you're talking about that, being in that situation, I think what is really important for people in our industry is that we're all nervous, right? The day we're not nervous or is probably a little bit scary. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe there's something we need to reconsider. Mm-hmm. But not only are we nervous, but I think the key is we move through the objective. Right. We move through it and we get done and we make a decision and get it done. And we try to do what's best for the community and the organization.
Right. To add to that, I think if you're not a little nervous, if you're not a little scared, are you really invested?
Right.
Do you really care about the outcome?
Oh, yeah.
Are you worried about how it's going to turn out? Right. How people are going to respond? You talk about just all these things that we find ourselves doing. Some of them are very dangerous and the outcomes can be very bad.
Sure.
And we're accountable to those individuals who are on the line, but and to their families and the community and the extended chain of folks that are connected to that.
Well, do you believe in continuous improvement, right? Do you want to make it better?
Right.
And I think we talk about hot washes or post-incident analyses, and I always joke that we need to do more than just say good job, right? We say good job, but we need a good job. But I know that's hard for some people,
right?
But I think it's I think this culture of continuous improvement, how we do it safer, how we do it better. Somebody told me the story of the University of Alabama football team. The coach is not at halftime telling them, hey, how great they did, and we're going to do great the next half. Hey, man, you did great, but hey, here's some other things we could tighten up on and do it even better. And I remember when I was a district chief, I'd get back, I'd have a gas leak or a structure fire call, and I'd go right back to the policy. I'd read the policy. All right, man, did I meet the expectations of the organization? And then when it got really fun, I would talk to the crews and we would have an idea. Hey, we want to try this. So I would put a little Post-it note on the steering wheel, and it would be like truck driver operator equals 360 and ladders, or gas leak equals level 2 staging. Like these prompts, because we knew we were going to get this call, but we talked about it. Now we're going to apply it and try it, and continuous improvement. It was just a fun thing.
Right. Yeah. I had a boss once who told me, he goes, of all the fires I've ever been on, not a single one of them went perfectly.
Correct.
Right. It's always a train wreck. It's controlled chaos.
Always.
Right. So it's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay to repeat those mistakes again and again and again.
Right.
So it's so important to stop and have a tailboard It's all right. Everybody was safe.
Yep.
Right. Everyone got out uninjured. Right. We put out the fire. Now let's talk about how we can be better at this job. It's such an important phase of that operation.
One of the things that I think I get sensitive to is things over the radio and these acts, these things we do that we could do better. And we have future officers listening.
Right.
We have junior firefighters on the fire ground. And one thing that worries me is I get sensitive to, if something just doesn't go as planned, or it's something we didn't talk about, and man, how do we fix it throughout the other 20 some members who are on scene? Like, how do we get the message out that, hey, this worked, but it wasn't exact, and here's how we should be doing it. And don't think that that's because the way we did it is the way we want you to do it again. Firefighter so-and-so who's on trade time from the other side of town. Because we're working, my organization, we're working every third day. We have so many different people.
Right.
And it's just, to me, I think us as in the fire service, supervisors, leaders, managers, chief officers, to get that message out, it's difficult. And especially when you're, all right, I got everybody right where I want them. This is where we're going to do it. Every structure fire call, we're going to talk about water supplies. And then it's missed on one. It's like, oh man, 21 firefighters just heard that. All right, we have to repeat the message again. We have to be that broken record. I always preach to, it's okay to be a broken record. It means you're sharing the story and you're sharing the right story. And if you forget if you told the person you've told it to, you should, as a leader and manager, you should be confused on whether or not you told somebody something, because that means you're repeating it and you're repeating the expectation.
Yeah, and don't apologize for saying it again.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying it.
This is an important message to me. I'm going to say this again.
This is what
you've probably already heard it. Good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
If you heard it, repeat it back to me.
And we could do it in a fun way, right? Like
yeah,
I do it,
of course.
The guys will laugh, and I'm like, yeah, I just got to say it because you guys know this is what's important to us and to me.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. So let's talk about I almost want to fill in the gap here when I ask this question, like, what keeps you up at night? And part of me thinking it's recognizing that you may not have reached all your folks with the desired message.
Right.
But that's what I'm filling in the gap for you. But you tell me, when as the chief of department, what are the things that keep you up at night?
Sure. I think we all have those. We should have those because we want to do great. And, we want to create these great organizations, and I want to create this atmosphere that we are, regardless of the number of stations we have. We're in an urban area, and I think every firefighter who listens, we want to be kick-ass firefighters. We want to do this work, and we want to do it well. And I think one of the things that keep me up at night is, and we talked about feedback to people. One of the things that does stress me out, not necessarily overwhelm me, but stresses me out, is when we do build these relationships, which are absolutely important. It is not easy to give, I would say, feedback. It is difficult. The more intense or more tense the feedback is, it's harder and harder. It is, like you said, you get nervous when you get that first structure fire call, right, as that newly promoted DC, and then you get more comfortable with it and you work through the objective. Personnel issues are challenging and hard because you want all your members to succeed. You get to know their families, you get to know their spouses and children. But what keeps me up at night is that if we're truly going to always do what's best for the community, if that's going to be our primary North Star, and not saying we're not going to do good things for the shift or the personnel, they're up there too, but if we all agree that our North Star and our true north is always do what's best for the community and the organization, is that, and we are going to have hard and difficult conversations. And I think a lot of it comes down to personnel issues. And I'm sure there's people listening, it's easy to handle this, or to give out discipline, or to talk to people, or to demote them. And man, I don't think it should be. I think it's a serious issue. And I will, that's what keeps me up at night, Chief, is that, do I have what it takes to deliver that message well. I know I could deliver the message, but when I'm presented with that challenge, am I going to do it? I know I could do it for the organization, but that's still a human being. And what's the next step for them? And I still love them and care about them. And I've always told people, I want you to be happy. I've told new firefighters that come in, hey, at some point, leaving, we need to consider when we leave. And I want you to be happy. If you're not happy here, I want you to be happy. And I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely does. The thing that occurs to me as you say that, there's this thing that pops into my head is I like to call it the lifetime employment model, right? We hire folks who are going to do a career,
right?
Typically, in the fire service, right? So we want to invest in them. We want them to be successful. We want them to be really good at their job.
Sure.
And in order for us to fulfill the primary mission, which is to serve the community in an all hazards environment, in order to make that happen, we've got to have really, really good people who are capable of executing the mission. And so if we take care of our people, they'll take care of the community.
Right.
That's how I look at it. And then to your point, if we have somebody who goes off the rails in whatever fashion, like we could probably talk about 100 different ways.
Intentional or not.
Yeah.
Right.
100 different ways someone could go sideways. What did we as an organization do to fail that person?
Yeah.
And it goes back to a little bit to ownership, right? And I don't think it's the fire chief's own problem completely, but I think there's a lot of steps in that chain of command that can impact that. And there's a lot of elements in the organization, right? Like,
absolutely.
Sometimes it's mental health, but we don't. I had one of our guys at work. He'll say, we don't hire junkies.
Right.
We don't,
No.
right? But sometimes they become that way because of injury, because of mental health issues, etc. And so what do we do in our organization to help those people survive?
Well, and I think, and I hope, just, I know you have a lot of firefighters who, some may, I'm sure you have them from across the landscape, right? Some that want to be promoted, some that don't want to be promoted.
Sure.
Which there's nothing, I mean, hey, they got it made. Like, they have the best job in the world, right? They are doing it. They are delivering that product, and they do a great job doing it. But if there's one thing, like, I think through this conversation that they may not know is that I think you would agree with me is that their supervisors, their bosses, so desperately want them to be happy and to succeed and do good things, and that when there are these decisions made, they will carry out their mission and do it, but know that they are human on the inside, and it's not easy for them, and they're working through this objective. And just something to consider for those who want to be promoted or those who go through it or see this is that, we're all human. And I'm not trying to, for us as officers, woe is us or anything. But it is. It's not easy. And there are challenges.
Right. Well, I think of it in terms sometimes as, we're all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
We have different positions and functions in the boat, but we all have to row the boat to get it to where it needs to be. And
Amen.
It takes all of us. So
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. So I'm going to shift gears on you just a little bit.
Absolutely.
So here we are at the IFSTA Winter Conference.
Right.
And you are the vice chair.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
So when we talk about participating in, I call it extracurriculars, right?
Sure.
Stuff outside of our organization.
Right.
Clearly that's something you value. I'm here too. So clearly it's something I value. So from your perspective, what is the benefit to the individual? What is the benefit to the fire service?
So let me answer that in two ways. So let me first state that I am excited about IFSTA. I am, like I said, I love my department. I love Oklahoma State. I love IFSTA, and I think we just do great work. And here's what excites me about IFSTA: whether you're a member or not, it has touched you. Everybody, whether it's the Essentials Manual or company officer or chief officer or driver operator, IFSTA has touched everyone in the fire service. And I've had the opportunity to represent IFSTA at some conferences, and we'll have tables set up near all the vendors, and people walk by vendors. They do a double take when they see the IFSTA table. They smile. they laugh, they look at the essentials manual, and they open it and they thumb through it, and it's this nostalgic thing back to their academy.
Right.
And I love the fact that IFSTA is this organization that is always there, whether it's through CFSI, CPSE. I mean, our executive board has IFF members, IAFC member. We have the chair of the CPSE. I mean, it is just this 90-year anniversary birthday coming up. It is just this constant, I think, for the U.S. Fire Service. And I am so honored and blessed to be the vice chair, to be on the executive board, to be a committee member. And it's fun to me. It's not work. It is this extracurricular. And I have to thank my boss too, because he lets me do this thing. He's excited about it. You know, I am here representing the city of Safety Harbor first and foremost. And it just happens to be me, Chief Stefancic. And I just think it's this great melting pot of representatives from the U.S. Fire Service and those who contributed to it, from the private sector to the public sector. Obviously, a majority of our committee members are from local government, firefighters, but we do have military, Department of Defense firefighters. We have private firefighters. We have manufacturers, with the goal of how do we transfer knowledge and educate firefighters to do great work, to continuously improve, to deliver great public safety to those who call 911. I mean, I just think it's this cool thing that I feel we will always have. We will always need this transfer of knowledge. And what's different about IFSTA, just a plug for IFSTA, because there's a lot of reputable publishers out there, but IFSTA is the only manual that has experienced firefighters on the street doing the work who are validating what is in these books. So it is current, it is applicable, and the best part is that every book has that complaint form. And if you don't like it, let us know. And what's great too, if you really don't like it, we're going to invite you to be on our next committee. And
there you go.
We want your input to help fix it. So when it comes down to the individual, I think it's important to give back. I think it's important to share what we've learned. And a lot of people invested in us. And I think it's important we invest in them. And sort of tied to that mentor-mentee thing, right? And how do we get that message out? And how do we share? I mean, look at you and I. We've from two different parts of the country working on similar manuals, sharing our experiences, to share your story in Phoenix and my story from Florida, and make sure that the firefighter in Nebraska has, like, almost selfish if we don't share those stories, right? To make it better and safer. So, yeah.
I sat on my very first book was Essentials 8th edition, and
great.
Well, what a great first book, right?
Man.
And
you hit the lottery on that one.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And what was really cool, my favorite takeaway from that, it was really, the experience was like, for me, I got the experience more than I gave to the book, right?
Oh, yeah.
And sitting there with firefighters from across the country, that's a pretty big committee because it's a big book, and you've got firefighters from agencies that are tiny, major metropolitan fire departments, and the difference in experiences and education levels and just all the different types of stuff. And firefighters are really cut from the same cloth everywhere you go, right? The circus is, there's different clowns. The circuses are all the same.
Oh, yeah. Same show, right?
Right.
Same show, and we have so much in common.
Right.
And we're stronger together.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating to have that, and it's really neat to sit down with firefighters from across the country and have conversations. And we got hung up on a couple different things, but someone's like, well, when you have a first alarm, and I'm like, time out. I go, what's a first alarm to you?
Right, yeah.
Right? That's like a 3-in-1 to me. And, a first alarm to me is like, significantly more apparatus.
Oh, wow.
But in my neck of the woods, we have this huge regional automatic aid system. At the click of a button, I could have 200 fire trucks. Right? Not so much the case in rural America or the frontier lands, right?
Yeah.
I just learned about that designation today, right? Frontier fire departments. I think it's like 2 people per square mile or something like that. It's ridiculous. So it's just all across our country in North America, it's different. Mm-hmm. And so bringing our collective heads together and having conversations about how we do this better, more effective for the the group coming behind us is really important.
Well, sort of sobering, right? So you and I are both in urban fire departments, and we talk about company officers and the work they do. And when you read these texts, and you'll read, well, the firefighter needs to know how to do, X, Y, and Z. And for you and I, it'd be like, well, the firefighter doesn't do that. The company officer does. And then this sort of have it hit over your head of, hey, not everybody's from the department's as fortunate as you, and there are two people, and it is a firefighter with 2 years in the front right seat, and they are going to have to do that. There are firefighters in rural America that are making decisions that company officers in our area would never make, just because it's left with the chief officer,
right?
And they are making those real world decisions without anybody else to help them. So it is. What an industry, huh? Yeah. What a cool industry to be a part of.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, and it's neat to be able to participate in that. So, what are some other, when you encourage firefighters to get outside their walls, what are some things you encourage them to do? Participate in IFSTA, obviously.
Yeah, obviously IFSTA, but if they don't, that's okay. This is my route. This is the route I want.
Yeah, so what are some other things you suggest?
So, honestly, I push so much out to our organization of opportunities that come out. And I've made a commitment that if somebody knocks on my door, I'm going to send them where they want. And I will work hard to get them to where they want to go. And I get it. I'm not naive to think the entire organization is going to want to do those things. But those who want, it's not going to be the department that keeps them from getting there. So I would say everything from whether it's local or to national. I got a firefighter asking to go to FDIC. Absolutely. Submit. And you know what? And here's where I think the mentoring begins. I'm not going to do the proposal or the budgeting. If you want to go, you work on the proposal, you work on the budgeting, run it up through the chain of command. Do I have funding? Yes. Will I discuss it? Absolutely. But you tell me how we're going to get you there. So FDIC, Fire Rescue East in Florida, and all the way to, and this is, I'm in a little nerd out on this one. I got a guy going to a 2-day data analysis class in St. Petersburg. It's just going to be Excel spreadsheet stuff about how we use our data that we collect in the fire service. And it's a 3-year firefighter. I'm jacked up that he's going. He's jacked up that he's going. And I think it's important to understand that the fire service is it's more than Safety Harbor, right? It's more than Phoenix. There are these other avenues and venues that I wish all of them would want to go and get a taste of it, but I know they won't. So those who come to me, I definitely want to try to get them there. I'm not. I'm a Florida Fire Chiefs Association member, but my outlet, my extracurricular is IFSTA. I'm dedicated to that. So trying to get and encouraging my district chiefs to get involved if they want as an outlet, as an extracurricular, Florida Fire Chiefs Association. And I think that, and I get it, right? Everybody's busy. Everybody, especially, first and foremost, our families are important. This is our job, but just to get that exposure of, I think it's important that we don't get, and I think you and I both agree to this, institutionalized. Mm-hmm. That there's other ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. The way we do it may work. The way we do it may be the best way, but the way we do it we may be able to improve upon how we deliver this product of the U.S. Fire Service to those who call 911.
I think it's so important to entertain challenging ideas or ideas that challenge our current operational context. Right. It may prove what we are doing is accurate, or we might find something new. Oh yeah. Either way, you got to figure it out because talk about continuous improvement. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know it's we're running long. It's time to go to dinner, so I'm going to ask you a couple rapid fire questions to pull us to a close.
Absolutely.
And to help us understand a little bit more about who you are.
Right.
Okay. These are kind of some wild questions, but here you go. What's something you believe that other people think is crazy or ridiculous?
What do I believe that other people think is ridiculous? One of things that I know other people think is crazy is I always set my parking brake. And I learned this when I became a district chief.
Did you have an incident?
I think more of us have had incidents than not. So I haven't had an incident, but I've been close. So this guy's teaching me how to be a district chief, our shift commanders. And he told me, I still remember, set your parking brake. I go, what? He goes, I'm telling you. He goes, kid, set your parking brake. I go, really? He goes, yeah. So I always get into the habit, and he'd catch me. He goes, hey, man, parking brake. I'm telling you. So sure as heck, I pull up. This is like my second or third working fire, and a lot going through your head, right?
Yes.
So I go, I go on scene. I go to get out of the car, and I take my foot off that brake, and I scoot forward. And right there, I go, parking brake. I didn't put it on. So to this day, my habit is park and parking brake. And when the guys will wash the car, I'm like, parking brake's on. We know. You and your parking brake. I had a DC borrowed my car one day. He goes, man, something's wrong with your car. I was running down the road, and he goes, and then I realized it was the parking brake, so we may have to get something checked out. But there have been these times I've had colleagues, not in my current community, they've gone back to their buggy, and it's down the road in a ditch because they didn't set their parking brake. But yeah, I think that fits the bill. Parking brake.
I like it. Okay. What's one horrible recommendation that you've heard people give?
Well, obviously there's we've always done it that way. You know, I think that's a horrible recommendation. I think the recommendations that in one way it's told people sitting in the back of a fire truck to, shut the F up or at the kitchen table. And I'm not just saying firefighters and just sort of expand it, but shutting people down. And not letting them say what. Then I get it, right? I get, in our positions and reading the room, and it's hard to, even for junior firefighters, you know, and just I get it, more ears, less mouth, and I get it. I've done it. I know there's importance to it too, to listen, but there's a way to do it, and I think when it comes to the point where it's we are all human beings, and we're all men, we're all women, and I don't agree with that.
Okay, so let me flip it.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever heard?
I'll say one that I've gotten and one I've taken.
Okay.
Go to counseling. And I tell you what, it is. I go once a month, and I just started going like a year ago, and if you had asked me this question 9 months ago, I would never have told you this answer. This would have been this thing that only I know, this stigma. And I know there's listeners, and I say this for those listening, that of how refreshing it is and of how important it is. And there is no stigma. And whatever you think it is, don't worry about it. And I have started sharing that more and more, and now I'm really sharing it on here because I do believe in it and how healthy it is. And just to be able to sit and talk to somebody who necessarily isn't a colleague or a family member. It's not rumor. It's not gossip. And also have a professional sometimes look at you from your thoughts and tell you, well, no, Josh, isn't that just silly? Some things we think are silly. And sometimes I said this, we have to show ourselves some grace. We have to show others mercy. We have to let ourselves down from the cross. Yeah, I mean, it's just sometimes we're just our biggest critics and we're so hard on ourselves. And I also recognize that I am blessed and fortunate. There are other people out there struggling that have some serious, serious issues going on. When I go to counseling, my counselors even said, this is just this, for me, it's this just enjoyable thing. We all talk about problems and stuff, but to get to this point where you get into a maintenance phase with a professional counselor, I will tell you, I don't care how much it costs, but it's money well spent. And I will tell you this, my subordinates love it. And I told them, I laughed. I go to counseling. They go, thank goodness, because we're tired of being your counselors. You don't pay us enough. But it is funny. So that's some advice I throw out there, especially as we learn more and more about things that our colleagues and our brothers and sisters are dealing with. I definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
So
good. Well, thank you for sharing that, because
yeah,
I do think that's a very important message.
Yes.
And I too.
Oh, great.
Go to therapy.
Awesome.
I think it's well worth it.
Good for you.
Okay, last question.
Yes, sir.
Podcast is called the Fireground Fitness Podcast.
Right.
And being Fireground Fit means a lot of things to a lot of different people. What does it mean to you?
Here's what it means to me, and I know you and I talked about this a little bit before the show. I believe in management. And I know some people probably just heard that and they sort of cringe, but I don't think management, and I say it as not a dirty word. And when I get into management, I think I go back to clear expectations, be honest, be kind, be direct, be a good manager, learn your job, learn your craft. Try to think less and worry less about being a leader. And if you learn how to do your gig, when you look over your shoulder, guess what? There's going to be people following you. And why I tie that into firefighter fitness, I tie that to the performance we do on the fire ground of the critical incident, the water supply, pulling the correct line, how do we get to the call, wearing our seatbelt, communicating with command, the commanders communicating with our personnel, how we treat our dispatchers. So I think that is, in my organization, you could ask any member who works for the City Safety Harbor Fire Department, what is our number one? What are our top priorities? And their calls, preparing for calls, and preventing calls. And our call is the most important thing. And the organization knows that. And it's so cool to see them take action for that. But I think that all starts with that management thing. And it's not a dirty term. It's not a bad term. We have the U.S. Fire Service, our organization's desires and needs and has great managers who know their job and know their craft and help get those other ones to where they need to be. And if you identify this performance gap between what you expect and what they're delivering, they don't know. Let them know. Tell them going forward what you expect. And I think they'll be surprised about what they see.
Right on. Chief, thank you so much for taking some time to share, a little bit of your time and your talents and your experience with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
Hey, folks, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Chief Stefancic, for sharing your time with us. Now, if you are looking for this podcast, go to any platform, subscribe. The episodes will drop in the middle of the night. And if you want to share some feedback, you can feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can reach out to me by email at raingray@firegroundfitness.com, or go on over to Apple Podcasts, rate and review the podcast. That helps grow the audience, helps other people find it, etc. Now, the most important thing is you take the lessons you've learned here in today's episode, you go out and you apply them in your lives. Lean into whatever it is you're doing, whether you're in the fire service or you're in a related field or you're doing something completely different. Go out there and live your best life. Go on now. Get after it. Get some.